A word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. I, personally, don't know what would get spoiled, but this is beginning the conversation on the fourth book of the saga that includes the Red Rising trilogy. So we're starting Iron Gold, which by many accounts is the start of a new trilogy, but it is still within the world. So I would recommend, because I don't know better otherwise, reading the first 3 books of the Red Rising saga before getting into this with us. If you do that, you can listen along with us because we just finished recording all 3 of those books. So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Hey there, this is Cross.
And I'm PJ.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your drunk weekly book club.
And today, right now, this is the second episode of the night that we're recording. I have a very congested sinus cavity, so hopefully that doesn't come across too much in my vocal influence over the podcast. But I'm drinking a stiff drink, man, in hopes of clearing that out a little bit.
We just finished our episode on Breach of Peace, and we're rolling right into Iron Gold. So, as we mentioned, today is our intro episode covering Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. We're just going to talk some general thoughts we have moving into this series and kind of moving on from the first saga or the first trilogy into the second trilogy. But before we do that, like you said, you've got a stiff drink in front of you. Let's talk about what we're drinking.
I've got scotch. I've got some scotch in a glass, and that's it. So I went with the Glenlivet 12, which I have 3 different Glenlivets in my on my liquor cabinet right now. I didn't think that I would effectively taste any of the older ones, so I went with the 12, which is very solid scotch. It's approachable. It is not super expensive. I think as far as scotches go, I would rightly say affordable, but good. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, Glenlivet 12 is kind of in my head, the standard baseline for when you start to qualify into good scotches.
It's almost, but not quite, the Jameson of scotches.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
it lives in that similar space. I think it's a little bit better than really bad scotches, as opposed to Jameson, which is maybe
way better than bad Irish is.
Oh no, I'm going the other way around in that Jameson seems a little bit overpriced for what it is, whereas Glenlivet seems a little bit underpriced for how it.
Sure, that tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I am also having scotch. I'm having Balvenie Caribbean Cask 14-year, which, PJ, as you know, is my favorite scotch.
It is your favorite scotch.
My favorite scotch. It's got a nice, like, warm, almost honey quality to it.
So Caribbean Cask being aged on rum casks, essentially?
Yes.
Or is it?
Yes, it's finished in a rum cask.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I think it's the last year or 2 years are in rum casks.
Gotcha. Which I don't know if I've had that one. I might have.
You've definitely had it at some point. I've foisted it upon you for sure.
Oh, we have this horrible habit.
You might not remember it.
Terrible habit of breaking out good liquor and good beer and good wine.
And good cigars.
When none of us will appreciate it and half of us will remember doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing your Balvenie Caribbean Cast 14-year with me. Fuck you, I don't remember.
Yeah, that's okay. It's like it's between, depending on the state you live in, it's between $65 and $80. 75.
Okay. I think this Glenlivet was like 45, but it also included, I want to say, like their 15 and their 21 as like
as like the little tiny things.
The little airplane bottles. So it was like their holiday pack or whatever.
Interesting. I saw one that was like a not quite. It was larger than the like holiday bottles, but it was like 375s, and it was all three of them lined up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing.
A 750 of 12. And,
got it.
And then 50 milliliters at each of, I want to say like 15 and 21, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Got it. Cool. So with that, let's get into kind of our thoughts and kind of predictions and whatever else is going to go on with this book. I think the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to read the summary. We're going to switch back and forth as we read this, and then we're going to break it down afterwards and kind of talk about each of the components. And that's going to be a bulk of the episode.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think so. Should I bring out my Judge Dredd voice again?
No,
All right.
not this time.
Okay. Crossland, you mentioned that there is some nasty spoilers that you should avoid in the like beginning in the book. Is anybody at risk of stumbling across those?
No, I was being way overcautious.
Okay.
As I like copied this off of Goodreads, I was sitting here like, is this a real serious spoiler for those who haven't read it? And I was like, no, you learn about a lot of this very quickly within the first couple of pages of the book. So it doesn't feel like, in the same way that the first summary of Red Rising gives you some background on a red, this also gives you some background on a red.
Okay.
So it's no different.
Is it still true to not read the glossary?
Yes. Do not read the glossary of either Iron Gold or Dark Age. There are some mistakes that they're aware of that I don't think are out of print or that they haven't corrected in the hardcover printings. I think in the softcover printing of Dark Age they fixed it, and the soft cover of Iron Gold. But there's one or two particular notes that are actually just straight up wrong that can set up some incorrect expectations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I got spoiled by the character glossary in Morningstar a little bit.
Yes.
Was it Antonia?
It was Victra.
It was Victra.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Victra.
You thought Victra died because she got shot a couple of times, but she was in fact alive.
It was set up like she died, but there she is, one of the first characters on this glossary of characters in the book. So there was that. But yeah, that got
skip the glossary.
resolved pretty quickly. But yeah, skip the glossary. Anyway, here's the inside of the front of the dust cover. Read by PJ Heller.
We're switching back and forth. You're reading the bold.
I know. Okay. I'll take one. A decade ago. Shit. I was hoping to jump straight into that. Fuck you. You started giggling, so I started giggling.
It's too funny. It's too good.
A decade ago, Darrow was the hero of the revolution he believed would break the chains of the society. But the Rising has shattered everything. Instead of peace and freedom, it has brought endless war. Now he must risk everything he has fought for on one last desperate mission. Darrow still believes he can save everyone, but can he save himself?
And throughout the worlds, other destinies entwine with Darrow's to change his fate forever. A young red girl flees tragedy in a refugee camp and achieves for herself a new life she could never have imagined. An ex-soldier broken by grief is forced to steal the most valuable thing in the galaxy, or pay his life.
And Lysander Owloon, the heir in exile to the Sovereign, wanders the stars with his mentor, Cassius, haunted by the loss of the world that Darrow transformed and dreaming of what will rise from its ashes.
Red Rising was the story of the end of one universe, and Iron Gold is the story of the creation of a new one. Witness the beginning of a stunning new saga of tragedy and triumph from masterly New York Times bestselling author Pierce Brown. Okay, so I mean, general thoughts, and then we'll dive into each of the individual chunks themselves. What are you most excited for in this next trilogy, even though there's only technically 2 books out right now?
I mean, I think the most exciting thing from this, and I'm curious if it's because I'm already invested in the characters, is Lysander and Cassius. It's the one thing that's not vague in the description of what's going on, as opposed to Darrow, which, I mean, he can't save himself. He can barely save other people.
He still believes he can, though.
Well, I mean, he's wrong. Lysander and Cassius, it's a compelling story, and it was set up in such a way that it really turns them into almost I'm almost likening them to the without seeing it, without knowing what's going on, whatever, Han and Chewie sort of role of like maverick, not necessarily exiled, but remote, take no shit from anybody, righteous people that are fighting for good, even though Han is technically fighting for coin, strictly. I think it's pretty well established that despite that tough exterior, he's kind of he has a set of morals that he actually follows, even though he claims not to. So that sort of dynamic is what I'm expecting out of Cassius and Lysander based on this setup.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as you've said, I think we should just maybe talk about each individual chunk, and then we'll move through and talk about anything else that's generally lingering for you. So let's start off with Darrow. We've got Darrow. We know that a decade's passed. What do you think Darrow looks like, believing that this rebellion was going to suddenly change everything, and is suddenly faced with the fact that, nope, it didn't, which is clear via the text?
Well, he's a dad, so he clearly has more of a paunch. He likes to wash his car and shine his shoes on Sundays. Generally a little bit more boring than he was in his 20s. That's my takeaway.
That's your takeaway from Darrow? The endless war.
Yeah, well, I mean,
what do you think they own in the solar system after 10 years? What do you think they control?
That's a good question. I think Mars. I think they probably control most of Mars. And my guess is that they control Mars and they are diplomatically at a tentative peace with basically everybody else in the solar system. They have stopped trying to move forward in any sort of conquering way, but have created some peace treaties and maybe some safeguards to make sure that they are protected as well.
So the only thing I'm going to give here that's, quote, spoilery, quote, is that Darrow's, really Mustang's, replacement government or realm is called the Republic versus the Society. So that'll be one change that's established very early on, but just to give you something to point to.
Okay.
The Republic.
That makes sense. And I think that even falls into line with my prediction a little bit, in that essentially, potentially, there's maybe a sort of EU kind of deal, like a conglomeration of nations or planets, as it were, that meet on a regular basis and help govern the solar system as a whole while maintaining dominion over their own planets.
Sure. So, any other thoughts for Darrow? You said that he was a dad. Did you want to think about Pax at all?
Well, he's 10, so...
He's like 11, actually, or almost 12.
What? And that's different?
Well, a little bit.
I guess.
I think 10 to 12 is pretty significant.
Lysander was
7
10 at
to
the
9,
end of the
not
last
really.
book.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, there will be a child fathered by Severo, who's in the same age range, and the little tykes are friends together. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that sets up a nice first class of whatever replaces the Institute and the Academy.
Sure.
But that might be down the line. That might be several series in the future. I think Darrow spends a lot less time with his with the Howlers and with the Sons of Ares in general. I think he's probably taken on a lot more of a symbolic role in those movements, and assists Mustang in leading, but primarily is the caretaker for Pax, and is leading from a distance in the capacities that he still holds, if any. I think he's held on to fatherhood as such a pinnacle goal for him, and something that he felt robbed of for such a long time, that I don't think he'll do much to squander that opportunity to be a father.
Okay. What about, do you think, you kind of alluded to this, but do you think the Sons of Ares still exist now that the society has been formed?
Yes.
Republic, excuse me. The Republic.
I think they still exist maybe in a less militaristic fashion, probably more in an official capacity within the Republic, but maybe as a humanitarian charity group, maybe some, I don't know the right way to describe it, but less offensive. Maybe they are folded into the military in some respects. Maybe they're broken up and are involved in protection and defense and charity and humanitarian efforts around Mars. And maybe they're just symbolic.
Okay.
Existing symbolically without any actual members or any actual like power over anything. But I think they still have a footprint.
Okay, cool. Anything else on Darrow?
Do we know if he's ever had facial hair?
I don't know, actually.
I think he's experimenting with it a little bit.
Okay. Dig it. He's in his 30s. May as well play around.
Yeah, I mean...
36, yeah. He's
when on Mars.
Yeah. Okay.
Do as the Martians do.
Okay. I'm not sure that's how it works. That's all, though, for Darrow?
Yeah, that's all for Darrow for now.
All right.
I'm going on nothing, man. Like, I'm going on
No, you're going on. You're entirely going on nothing, and that's okay. I'm not looking for anything crazy. We're just talking about it. So, we'll move on to the next one. A young red girl flees tragedy in her refugee camp and achieves for herself a new life she could have never imagined.
So this is set up in a way that makes it sound a little bit whimsical and a little bit positive. I think it's going to be more tragic than that. I think it's going to lean into the tragedy part. And I think potentially it's going to be something... I'm assuming she was in maybe Tinos or something similar. And was in the situation where before the lights were on perpetually because people were getting raped and murdered and just brutalized all the time. That's what caused Severo and Dancer to turn the lights on all the time. My prediction is that she was in there before that happened and something just fucking horrible happened. And she holds resentment towards the Sons of Ares and Darrow and the Howlers in general. And she's going to be a negative force, an antagonistic force against all of our heroes of the previous book.
Okay. Interesting. Like it. Any other thoughts on the red girl?
No.
Okay.
No.
Cool. I mean, like I said, this is going to be pretty straightforward, so
yep.
I'm not going to try to dig in that much. An ex-soldier, broken by grief, is forced to steal the most valuable thing in the galaxy, or pay with his life. Thoughts there?
Ephraim.
Yeah.
We didn't get enough of any sort of payoff with him. He didn't die, right?
No, he's very much alive.
He's very much alive. He was a soldier at one point, and then joined the Sons of Ares. The most valuable thing in the galaxy, though. I think there's something cryptic about that. It's not going to be monetary. I'm curious what that's going to be. But I think that ex-soldier is Ephraim, and that's the only guess I have right now.
Okay.
On that chunk. On that one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to like make anything off of anything except for like the intro and the outro here with Lysander and whatnot. So, yeah.
And I've already kind of gone through what I think as far as Lysander and Cassius go. I think they'll probably have spent a good several years after the end of the first book before anybody heard from them. Just kind of going from outer reach planets, just kind of learning and living and being free. I think it'd probably be a couple years before they decide to come back into the fold of the main planets of now the Republic, as we know. I
get a weird, just a random thought. I get a weird like Lion King Simba vibe from this description. Do you kind of see what I'm stinking? Like Simba leaving the nest and then coming back and.
Yeah, I could see that. I could get behind that. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, no, it was just something from this description in particular that made me go like, are we painting Lysander as Simba for some reason? I don't know. I mean, he's a loon, not Augustus. But okay. Any other thoughts there?
Well, if that's the case, wouldn't that make Darrow and the Howlers water buffalo?
I mean, or Scar, but yeah. Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
But Yeah.
I guess it depends on how you look at it. You're right.
Right. It could just be the tragedy of the water buffalo, the mass of people running over the thing that need to be fixed. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I just, for whatever reason, it evoked that this time, and that has nothing to do textually. It's just that sentence. For some reason, I was just like, oh yeah, kind of like I just imagined Simba plus, like, if Lysander is Simba and Cassius is like some weird combo of Timon and Pumbaa, who were previously a part of the, menage a trois with Mufasa and whatnot.
Yes, I'm into it.
All right, cool. Any other thoughts on the Lysander Cassius thing?
Not at the moment.
All right, so we've got,
what I think.
To summarize your feelings, as it comes to Darrow, he's kind of semi-retired, leaning into being a dad.
Yep. Not necessarily retired, but he has shifted his positions in a way that he is more of a figurehead and more of a remote tactician in anything that he does. I think he operates from his home, wherever that might be, in such a way that he doesn't have to leave Pax alone.
Sure. Okay. The red girl, our red girl here, is being set up as an antagonist through her resentment towards society that has turned her from a slave into a refugee.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Ephraim is broken by grief and is going to steal something from the galaxy. That's what you're predicting? Yes.
Which
something very valuable.
Most valuable thing in the galaxy. If you're talking about power, all of the extra nukes.
All of the nukes.
I think Ephraim takes control of all of the nukes.
Fair? Okay.
No.
Interesting. It's not easy. I mean, we've seen people do it, but it's not easy. And Lysander / Cassius here are going to be a roaming pair.
They're playing cowboy a little bit.
Yeah.
They're space cowboys.
Right. The only thing I'd say is based on the last paragraph, this is something that Pierce Brown has talked about, but setting kind of the expectation to some degree. The original trilogy is really about upending a problematic society, and the sequel trilogy is about, well, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was to actually create something perfect. Like, it wasn't, the dream was not so easy to achieve. And that's sort of the base theme that's established within a page of the sequel trilogy. So just kind of give that as groundwork. It feels pretty clear based on this, but it's very clearly about the sort of downfall of the backside of what a rebellion looks like that actually takes over. What does the actual recovery look like?
Like, hey, you won. What now?
Right. That's exactly where this comes off. So, any other questions? Any other thoughts that you have going into the sequel trilogy now with a very other limited piece of information that you have? Anything else?
So I guess my other thought is kind of addressing something that we did last time in this situation, which was the Deadpool. And I think we're in a position where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that right now. And I think we haven't discussed it explicitly, you and I, Crossland, but I think it would make more sense to do it week by week in a little bit less explicit way as a Deadpool, kind of fold them into the weekly predictions.
Yes.
If it kind of lends itself to a little bit of knowing that maybe death is on the table in the next episode. But
you could pose it as a bet, and then we take the bet, and then we hold that bet forward.
Something
Whatever
like that.
It pays off. Yeah.
But it was just so much payoff in the last chunk of last book that I think it makes, as much fun as that episode was, I think it makes more sense to chop it up a little.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As we look at kind of both Iron Gold and Dark Age and Book 6, we'll figure out the best way to approach
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Number of deaths per chapter. Not per chapter, but per chunk. If you just make me guess over under a certain number as a prediction, that could be kind of fun.
Yeah.
That might be tough, though. That'd be a lot of work for you to to prepare.
It's not hard. It's not hard to track or prepare. The harder part is we bounce between point of views now. And that can be that can be very different. If it were singularly one perspective, I think I'd feel more confident in that. But the other part of this is we are going to be moving between perspectives and perhaps on multiple cliffhangers for perspectives for weeks on end.
I hadn't even fucking considered that. Shit. Oh, God.
You might be waiting like 2 weeks for an answer to a question you had at times. So,
no. All right. Well, never mind. We'll come up with a plan as far as a spiritual successor to the Deadpool goes.
Yes. The regular predictions will continue to pay off as previous, but we'll try to figure out something that's Deadpool adjacent, because that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was just not so much fun having 18 to resolve on the final episode.
True, for sure.
It worked out, and you made some. I was just listening to this episode today. By the way, the final episode, the actual story, like the final chapters of Morningstar, and I forgot how fucking funny your drinks were.
Yeah, they were outrageously bad. They were so bad.
Just because you fucked up, man.
I really fucked up on the front end. It was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we said anything else. What are you most excited about jumping into this, though? Like, what are you most excited to see in this sequel trilogy?
I'm excited to see the space cowboys of Lysander and Cassius and see where it goes from there. It seems like, I mean, like I mentioned before, those are the people I'm familiar with, and it was set up in such a way that we know they rode off together, and it's introduced in a way that we know they continued to ride together. So that's the duo that we have the most information on. So naturally, I feel like I'm most drawn to seeing where that went.
Interesting.
And where it's going.
Any other thoughts? Anything else you want to say? Cap off the summary part.
I'm excited to be here. It's a seemingly fresh start in that we're not jumping in after a cliffhanger and like I'm clamoring to start this book because I need to know how this resolves. It feels fresh and new, and I'm excited. I'm very excited. It feels different than the previous book beginnings have been.
Cool. Well, that's very exciting, and I think that's a great point to talk about what we're going to be reading next week. Next week, we will be reading through Chapter 7. That's all of the prologue chapters and up until Chapter 8. So you're going to read all the way through Chapter 7.
Once you see 8, stop.
Stop, motherfucker, stop. It's going to be interesting because, of course, there are now going to be perspectives underneath the numbers. So you'll see a name, you'll know which character you're inside of, and then you'll move down the text. So it's going to be
that
interesting.
That is how reading works.
Well, all that I'm saying, PJ, is we've been trapped in Darrow's POV for a long fucking time.
Yeah, we have.
And
when did we first record our first episode of Red Rising?
Technically, the beginning of September. I think we released in October. It was the second week of September. I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah, we released the first week of October.
Yeah, so it's been over half a year of us trapped in a single point of view.
Oh, well over that. Yeah.
Yep. I am. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Cool. All right. So that's where we'll leave you for this week. Continue to refer us to your friends and family, anyone who might like what we do here. We are the Drunk Weekly Book Club. We piece this out. We enjoy talking about themes and motifs and whatnot. Recommend us to people who you might think might like us. We absolutely love that. On your platform of choice, of course, leave us a review. 5-star review goes a long way to referring us to other people, other podcasts, other things that occupy the space in nature. It's really, really important to our growth. So if you can, please do. Otherwise, interact with us on our website, wordsandwhiskey.show, our email account, wordsandwhiskeypodcast@gmail.com, or any of our social medias, Words and Whiskey Pod. Words Whiskey Pod, not Words and Whiskey Pod. Words Whiskey Pod. At that point, you'll be able to talk with us. We respond very actively to any and every message that we get, and we're very excited whenever we get them. We will be very soon featuring questions and feedback and other things like that for PJ going into this. So I hope to be able to pose questions back to the audience and then receive answers to discuss around PJ's thoughts on the chapters and or otherwise. Your favorite parts of the book, your different components or favorite characters, things like that. Questions we pose to you that we want to hear answers from. So thank you so much for sticking with us for all of this. We've got another 2 books to tackle within Red Rising, and we're so excited.